Once upon a time, there was an old shoemaker who lived with his wife in a small house in a small village. Their home was also their shop, where they lived and sold their shoes to any customers who came in, although that wasn't very often. They lived a happy life together, but there was one problem. They were running out of money, and the shoemaker only had one piece of leather left to make one more pair of shoes to sell. After his breakfast one day, the shoemaker went to find his last piece of leather, but he could not see it anywhere. His wife started to get cross, saying, "Have you checked the attic? It could be there." The shoemaker and his wife lived in their shop, so it was important that they kept it clean, so that if any customers came in to buy some shoes, which wasn't very often, it would be neat and tidy. Whilst the shoemaker went hunting for his leather, his wife went about doing the jobs. "Look what I found," said the shoemaker, as he climbed down the ladder from the attic. His wife looked up and saw not just the last piece of leather, but also the Advent candle holder and a box of candles. The shoemaker's wife wasn't cross anymore, as she remembered that it was the start of Advent and Christmas was nearly here. Together they put 4 candles in the candle holder and lit just one of them. Looking at their Advent candle, the shoemaker thoughtfully said, "Who will buy my shoes?" "I don't know, but I hope they buy some soon," replied his wife. They left the candle burning and went upstairs to bed.
Something is going to happen, to happen. We will wait and see. What will it be?
While the shoemaker and his wife slept, something mysterious was happening downstairs. 2 little elves with pointy ears and raggedy clothes magically appeared in the shoemaker's workroom. They danced around the room, laughing and giggling, until they spotted the Advent candle holder and candles. They carefully moved it from the mantelpiece over to the shoemaker's workbench to give them some light for what they were about to do. The elves began making some very special shoes while singing, "Here's the heel, here's the sole, you hammer, I'll stitch. Here's the toe, here's the top, you hammer, I'll stitch. Tap, 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 done." Shall we try and do that again together? "Here's the heel, here's the sole, you hammer, I'll stitch. Here's the toe, here's the top, you hammer, I'll stitch. Tap, 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 done." The elves had made a beautiful pair of shoes. They held them up to the light and danced around the room again, pleased with their work. They set the shoes down on the bench, carefully lifted the Advent candle holder, replaced it back on the mantelpiece, and danced away into the night.
Something is going to happen, to happen. We will wait and see. What will it be?
In the morning, the shoemaker's wife, still half asleep and hopeful that they might get a customer that day, began to tidy their room. The shoemaker joined her and they sang their housework song together before sitting down to a well-deserved breakfast. Right, I'd better start making the last pair of shoes then, said the shoemaker, hopeful as he walked over to the workbench. To his surprise, there were the shiny new shoes that the elves had made that night. The shoemaker looked at the shoes, astonished, wondering who had made these beautiful shoes. The shoemaker and his wife were very excited and put them on display in the big window for everyone to see. With that, the bell on the door rang, and a customer entered. "Can I try on those beautiful shoes, please?" he said. "Of course," said the shoemaker. "Let me help you." The customer danced around the room in the beautiful shoes with the biggest smile on his face. "I'll take them," he said. "That will be 1 piece of gold, please," said the shoemaker. The customer liked the shoes so much, he gave the shoemaker 2 pieces of gold. Double the amount he had asked for, shook his hand, saying they were the best shoes he'd ever seen. The shoemaker and his wife put the gold into their money box and were very happy. They placed the second candle into their advent candle holder and lit it, and spent the evening relaxing together, watching the candle flames dance as they flicker, thankful that they had finally had a customer to buy those beautiful shoes, wherever they had come from. When the candle burnt out, the shoemaker put the holder on the mantelpiece, and they went up to bed. The next day, the shoemaker counted up his money and went to the market to buy enough leather for 2 pairs of shoes. He came back, inspired by the beautiful shoes he had found on his workbench the day before, and set to work on making the best shoes he had ever made. He put them on display, and within 2 hours he had sold them. The shoemaker and his wife were very pleased and went to bed feeling very happy.
Something is going to happen. We will wait and see. What will it be?
That night, whilst the shoemaker and his wife slept, the elves came back again. They noticed that their shoes had been sold and danced around the room, happy that they had helped the shoemaker and his wife to sell their shoes. They once again moved the candle holder to the workbench and set to work on making another pair of beautiful shoes for the shoemaker to sell. "Here's the heel, here's the sole, you hammer, I'll stitch. Here's the toe, here's the top, you hammer, I'll stitch. Tap, 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 done." Shall we do that again together? "Here's the heel, here's the sole, you hammer, I'll stitch. Here's the toe, here's the top, you hammer, I'll stitch. Tap, 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 done." When the elves had finished making the beautiful shoes, they held them up to the light and danced, happy that they were able to help the shoemaker and his wife. They placed them on the workbench, carefully moved the candle holder back to the mantelpiece, and danced away into the night. The next morning, the shoemaker and his wife came downstairs to find the beautiful shoes that the elves had made, once again sitting on their workbench. They held them up, admiring the craftsmanship, and felt so lucky that they had someone so kind helping them. Once again, they put the shoes on display in the window. 1 hour later, a lady stopped by the window, admiring the shoes she had spotted. She came into the shop. "Can I please try on those beautiful shoes?" "Of course," said the shoemaker, and he helped her to try on the beautiful shoes. The lady liked the shoes so much that she brought her friend in, who also tried on a pair. They were so happy, they gave the shoemaker 4 pieces of gold, double the amount that he had asked for. The shoemaker and his wife placed the 3rd candle into their advent holder, lit it, and spent the evening relaxing together, watching the candle flames dance as they flickered, thankful that they had sold those beautiful shoes, wherever they had come from. When the candle burned out, the shoemaker put the holder on the mantelpiece, but this time, curious as to who had been making them the shoes to sell, they hid behind the curtains of the shop window, so as they could find out who had been so kind to them. Just like the nights before, the elves appeared, dancing around the room. They moved the candle holder to the workbench and began creating some more beautiful shoes. The shoemaker and his wife were astonished and watched in amazement as the elves continued their merry work. They wanted to join the elves when they held up the beautiful shoes and danced by the candlelight, but managed to stay quiet and hidden behind the curtains. When the elves had finished, they carefully moved the candle holder back to the mantelpiece and danced away, unaware that the shoemaker and his wife had seen everything. Once they had gone, the shoemaker and his wife examined the beautiful shoes, and their hearts were full of love that the elves had made the shoes for them to sell. They blew out the candles and went up to bed with a very special idea.
Something is going to happen. We will wait and see. What will it be?
It was Christmas Eve, and after their breakfast and lots of talk about what they had witnessed the night before, the shoemaker counted out the money they now had. He realised that thanks to the shoes the elves had made for them, and from the shoes he was then able to sell himself, that they no longer needed to work and could retire happily. They talked about the elves and their raggedy clothes, and thought that instead of making more shoes to sell, as a Christmas present, they could make the elves some brand new clothes and shoes to say thank you. The shoemaker found some leather and started to make 2 pairs of elf-sized shoes, and the shoemaker's wife found some material to make 2 elf-sized cloaks and 2 elf-sized hats. It took all day to make the beautiful clothes and the beautiful shoes for the elves, and when they were finished, they wrapped them up and placed them on the workbench. They carefully brought the candle holder over, lit the 4th candle, and wrote a card which they placed next to the parcels, saying, "For the elves, a little something to say thank you for all you have done for us." And instead of going up to bed, they hid behind the curtains, as they had done before, with love in their hearts, knowing that something special was about to happen.
Something is going to happen. We will wait and see. What will it be?
soon enough, the elves came, dancing with their usual joy. They immediately noticed that the candles had been moved. Then they spotted the brightly coloured parcels on the workbench with the note from the shoemaker and his wife. They unwrapped the parcels and held up their new cloaks and new hats and new shoes and danced with delight. They sang, "Oh, aren't we smart? Oh, happy day. Now we can go away. Never to hammer, never to sew. We've done our work, away we go." Shall we do that again together? Oh, aren't we smart? Oh, happy day. Now we can go away. Never to hammer, never to sew. We've done our work, away we go. And with that, the elves left the shoemaker and his wife's shop and home, dancing down the street, very thankful for their new clothes and for the kindness that the shoemaker and his wife had given them. The shoemaker and his wife's hearts were full of joy, having seen how happy the elves were with their Christmas presents, and watched the elves dance along the road until they were out of sight. The shoemaker and his wife carefully put the candle holder back on the mantelpiece, and they sat together watching the candle flames dance and flicker, knowing that this truly was a Christmas to remember. We hope that you enjoyed our Christmas story, and from all of us here at Nordoff Robbins, we wish you all a very Merry Christmas.